Many people wrongly believe that affirmative action allows unqualified students to be admitted ahead of qualified students. This is not how college admissions work. Rather, colleges set out standards for admission, and every student has to meet those standards.
Is this a rogue court?
This is not a normal court.
So that was President Biden sounding off on the Supreme Court's landmark decision on affirmative action on Thursday. In its historic 6-3 ruling, the court held that it's unconstitutional for colleges and universities to consider race a factor in their admissions. So for more on this analysis, we're going to bring in former member of the U.S. Commission on Civil Rights and director of the Independent Women's Law Center, Jennifer Braceras, as well as spokesperson for Color Us United, Christian Watson. Also with us, our special guest, former New York Congressman and FBI Special Agent Michael Grimm, as well as Director of Senior Initiatives at Freedom Works Foundation, Clara Villar. So, Christian, the president of your organization, Kenny Zhu, was one of the plaintiffs in the case. How did your team feel that it was apparent that Color Us United helped make history here?
Well, the thing is, Kenny has been agitating on this issue for a very, very long time, and it's actually quite fitting because if you look at those who are actually adversely impacted by affirmative action, number one, it's Asian students. There have been stories around the nation of Asian students being told by their school counselors, by their friends, by their family members, not to apply for high-ranking schools they would normally be a shoo-in for because affirmative action and quotas have displaced them. You know, what happened with SCOTUS recently was a constitutional question. And the constitutional question was, do universities that are funded by public expenditure have the right to discriminate against people in violation of the Equal Protection Clause? Obviously, no. But there's also a deeper philosophical and social question here, and that is, what kind of standards do we live under as a society? Affirmative action was a standard set by the government which put minority students under a different, unequal standard to other students who were high achievers statistically, and therefore created a culture of of grievance, of just anger and of different expectations. This is called the soft bigotry of low expectations. And that has done more damage than any Supreme Court case, than any legislation, than any welfare system could ever do to Black America. That's what we have to really confront as a nation. How do we reverse the damage set by unequal standards? How do we reverse the division within the hearts and minds of people, of high achievers who have been told for so long that they cannot achieve because it's inequitable? How do we do that? That's the question the left needs to answer, and that's the question the right needs to lead on with moral clarity.
Jennifer, do you agree with that?
Well, I do, but I'm not as confident as some of my conservative colleagues are about this decision. It was a great legal win. It's a huge win for the principle of equal treatment under law. But the reality is that schools are going to do whatever it takes to avoid complying with this decision. They say they're going to comply with it, but it's not going to stop elite schools from trying to socially engineer the right racial mix. And in that sense, this case is not a victory for meritocracy. It's actually the opposite, because what schools are going to do is they're going to remain test optional. They're going to get rid of other indices of merit, like class rank or AP class, number of AP classes taken. And they're going to focus on other qualities that don't necessarily correlate with academic performance or the ability to compete at the level of Harvard. And so in the long run, it's actually a blow to the meritocracy, unfortunately.
So Chief Justice John Roberts, an appointee of George W. Bush, writing the majority opinion saying that students must be treated on the basis of their experiences as an individual, not on the basis of race. And then he continued, many universities have for too long done just the opposite. And in doing so, they have concluded wrongly that the touchstone of an individual's identity is not challenges, bested skills built, or lessons learned, but the color of their skin. So our Constitution history does not tolerate that choice. So Roberts' opinion was then challenged by Justice Brown Jackson, who wrote in her dissent that with let them eat cake, obliviousness today, the majority pulls the ripcord and announces colorblindness for all by legal fiat. But deeming race irrelevant in the law does not make it in life as well. So Justice Clarence Thomas responded to that dissent, saying this: accordingly, Justice Jackson's race-infused worldview falls flat at each step. A contrary, myopic worldview based on individual skin color to the total exclusion of the personal choices is nothing short of determinism, racial determinism, that is. So, Michael, what do you make of this, the let them eat cake remark by Justice Jackson?
Well, listen, I think that actually the previous guest, I think it was Jennifer, said it very, very well. She articulated the fact that regardless of what the Supreme Court says, it's hard to implement against these independent institutions. They won't call it color or race. They'll call it something else, but they'll still implement the same policies.
Right.
And I think that the justice here was saying, let them eat cake. She was basically saying that it's in the theory of law, Clarence Thomas is correct on a strict interpretation of the law, but in society, in life, that's not practical. So there really is no answer to this other than to say what's the heart of the problem. If you're saying that certain minority groups are not able to compete at that level, then why don't we fix that problem? Fix the schools from 1st to 8th. Right. Let's get them the education they need from the beginning. Let's keep them safe in their environments so they want to go to school and not have all the drugs and violence in those communities to begin with. And nobody wants to do that. So if you really want equality at the higher learning education level, it starts at the very lowest when
Michael,
they're children.
You're right on the money. Absolutely. This is 2023. The left is outraged about an affirmative action decision, yet they don't do anything about school choice.
Right.
They refuse to acknowledge that that's the critical issue when children of diverse backgrounds are suffering in reading and math and the skills they need to succeed. So this faux outrage to me is ridiculous.
Right. Fix the problem if you're that outraged.
If you're that outraged, no question about it.
Jennifer, Christian, Michael, Grimm, Clara, thank you so much for your insight on this. Stick around.